Everybody, good day. Is everybody happy? Are you having a good day so far? Have you had a good day? Are you in the midst of a good day? Yes. Okay. So, I actually respond to visuals. So if you are online and I see your little face and you smile or nod or give me a thumbs up occasionally, let me know that things are happening. There's Jorgen too. He's blessed us with his presence. That's nice. And he's got really good backlighting. So your silhouette, you change your lighting there. I try to always adjust my lighting to make me look just so. Here, let me augment that here. All right, let's get underway. If you're taking notes, last week, as you recall, I pulled out my Lominger sort cards and we went through a bunch of strengths and skills that you might have. And we talked about not your strengths, but strengths that you could overuse. Yeah? And Dumas said any virtue carried to an extreme can become a crime. So hopefully you had a chance to think about your strengths and how those could actually work against you if you're constantly using them as a default mode all the time. So we're going to talk today for the last time, I think, on self-awareness. Some of you are going, yay, I'm done. I'm so self-aware. I stay awake at night. That's how aware I am of myself. Well, this is I think our last, unless I think of something brilliant for next week, our last segment on self-awareness. But today we're going to talk about career stallers and stoppers. Career stallers and stoppers. And I did a little tease on this last week. I have some extra cards that came in my Lominger portfolio sort pack, and they're gray, and they're literally labeled career stoppers and career stallers. So these are aspects. These are what, if you recall, last summer we talked about achieving your potential and how your mind works, and we discussed scotomas. That's a big word, scotoma, S-C-O-T-O-M-A. A scotoma is a blind spot that you have. All of us have scotomas. Some of us, people, if someone walks up to you and says, you know what, do you have any gum? You may have a scotoma to the fact that you have bad breath. Okay? So all of us have scotomas in different areas, but I'm going to go through some areas that you may be blind to. And what I want you to do is write down the term that I give you off my cards. And then what I want you to do is write down either 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. 1 means this problem, this career staller is not a problem. 5 means, this could be a problem for me. I need to start paying attention to this. All right? So there's about 20 of them, so I'm going to go kind of fast, and we will get underway. And I'll tell a few stories as we go along, just because it gets boring for me just to read things to you. But here's the first one. Key skill deficiencies. Key skill deficiencies. What that means is, right off the card, you lack one or more key job required talents or skills that you need to perform effectively. That's a deficiency. So if you're a booking buddy, and I know you guys are online, some of you, and you have your key skill is making phone calls with the right tone, and you're deficient in that area, you don't do well with your voice, then that's a problem. That can be a career staller or certainly a career stopper. All right, so rank yourself there. Here's another one. You are a blocked personal learner. These get easier. A blocked learner. What that means is that person is closed to learning new personal, interpersonal, and leadership skills, new approaches, new tactics. You enjoy staying the same. So you have some blockage when it comes to learning. So rate yourself 1 to 5. If you're like, hey, I don't have a problem, but I don't like learning, then put a 5 down because you have a block right there. Okay? You get it? Is everybody with me? Nod your heads. Yes? Okay. Good. Some of you look really excited. Hey, here's one. This is typical of salespeople. Poor administrator. Poor administrator. It doesn't like details, lets things fall through the cracks, overcommits and underdelivers, forgets commitments, and has to scramble to pull things together. That, you know, you might be a great salesperson, but if you don't follow up and take care of details, that can be an issue, right? Yes. So rank yourself there. Here's another one. This is pretty straightforward. It says arrogant. Arrogant. That's a problem. Always thinks he or she has the right and only answer, and discounts or dismisses the input of other people. That can really stall your career. If people walk around and after you leave the room, they go, man, he's really arrogant. You have to be likable. All right, let me do this. Here's one that I had a problem with when I was a young manager. Let me read it to you. Unable to adapt to differences. Unable to adapt to differences. And what this means, it says has trouble working and adapting to new bosses, strategies, plans, programs, and cultures. And here's what got me. It says might disagree inappropriately or too vocally with top management. That was me. I went through a period where I was trying to change a 150-year-old company at Southwestern from the inside out. And as I was in director meetings, I wasn't going about it the correct way. So I had just finished reading Tom Peters' book. Well, he wrote a number of books on changing the corporate culture dramatically. So in a sense, I was just throwing hand grenades in the meetings and getting everybody upset. But I thought, yeah, this is the way to do it. Let's make change. Until someone stopped me and said, you know what, the way you're going about that, you know, this is how bad it got. I actually changed my business card from saying director of marketing. I changed my title to corporate anarchist. Yeah, you're like, well, that's a cool title. It was. It was nice when you went to meetings outside the company and you handed the card to somebody and they're like, wow, this is a cool job. I'm like, yeah, I made that up myself. But it was a career staller until the CEO sat me down and said, you know what, your star is not on the rise. You need to kind of change your ways, modify your approach. We appreciate you wanting to change things, but this is not the way to go about it. I'm like, okay. So that was a career staller. Let me give you another one. Trust issues. Trust issues. This person fails to follow through on promises, leaves people waiting, says one thing and means another, is inconsistent and unpredictable. And the problem is with some of these, we don't even know it. We're like, okay, well, I don't have a problem with that. This is why you have teammates. You can look this list over and go, wow, you gave yourself a 1 on that? Really? You need to help each other. Here's another one. Career stopper. Defensiveness. Being too defensive, not open to criticism, denies mistakes, rationalizes away failures, okay? Gets upset at the messenger that brings bad news. That's not cool, okay? Let me give you, can I share some more of my problems with you? Yes? Okay, it makes you feel better when you know that I have problems. Well, here's one that I had when I was an organizational leader. I was leading an organization. It's lack of composure. Lack of composure. And you're like, wow, that doesn't sound like you, Lee. You're right. It doesn't now because I'm 60. But when I was 25, I didn't handle pressure very well. When everything was going wrong and there were problems and details and people were upset and people in my organization were quitting, I didn't handle it very well. I got emotional. I got somewhat unpredictable. I'm reading stuff off the card too. May make snap decisions that are poor. That was me. So I actually worked on that and changed my beliefs about myself to the point where I consider myself quite composed now. But when I was younger, lack of composure was a career staller, okay? So make a note of that. All right, let's do another one. Overmanaging. Overmanaging. If you're in a position where people report to you and you over-control or you meddle in their work, you're always checking on them, you don't empower people, you don't get the most out of people, or you can't delegate, you are over-managing, or what we would call a micromanager. So rank yourself 1 to 5 on that, okay? Here's another one, especially as you move into leadership, non-strategic. a person that is non-strategic. They can't create effective strategies. They can't deal with assignments that require strategic vision and thinking. They get bogged down in details and tactics. So that is a great thing if you're going to become a leader at LGFG, to become strategic. Let me give you another one. I don't have too many more. You guys doing okay on these? If you've written down like, oh, I've got a 1 in all of them, then you maybe have assessed yourself too highly. So have your friends help you. But here's one, and I have a story that goes with this. It just says performance problems. Performance problems, does not consistently hit targets and objectives. I had a guy I worked with for about 10 years. He was a friend of mine, and I had the exciting task of firing him and helping him clean out his desk, take his lamp and plant out of his office, pack it into his car, and help him drive home. Now, his name was Trey. Now, this isn't Trey Campbell, if some of you know that Trey. This is a different Trey, but he had one assignment, and that was to manage all the alumni affairs at Southwestern. And he did a good job with that for a few years, but then he started working with the sales managers, helping them manage their organizations, and he was very effective. A lot of people would come to him and say, hey, Trey, I need some ideas with this. I have a salesperson who's got a problem. So he would spend more and more time helping them do their job than building the database of the alumni. Well, it got to the point where it was a problem, and he had a couple warnings, but continued to do where he was getting positive strokes, and that was from sales managers, neglected his job, performance problems. So that was what we call a career stopper. Done. So make sure you're paying attention to that which you should be working on. All right? Here's one that's pretty straightforward. Lacks ethics. Ethics issues. Lacks the sensitivity to the operating ethics and values of the organization. This says it operates too close to the margins. You know, that means sometimes in selling, what that means is you'll say anything to make a sale, even if it's not necessarily true. Make a note. I've felt the pressure myself of having to make a sale. They're like, well, does your product do this? Well, yeah, I'm sure it does. You know, this was like my first year. I didn't know what I was talking about. So be careful about that, because that can be a career staller or stopper. Here's one as a leader: failure to build teams. Failure to build teams. And this is somebody that doesn't even believe much in the value of teams. This can be a problem for great salespeople. They're a one-man army. They don't pull the group together to accomplish tasks. And you got to have teams. It's all about teamwork. Okay? I've got a few here I wanted to share a story or two about real quick. This one is kind of odd. Yeah. I've got two that pertain. Last night, or for about a week, my daughter Katie and I have been watching something on Netflix called Hitler's Inner Circle. Yes, Hitler's Inner Circle. And you're like, what does this have to do with career stoppers and stallers? Well, if you've studied the immediate team around Adolf Hitler in the Third Reich, those 10 individuals, they had two massive career stallers or stoppers. I'll highlight one. It says overly ambitious. Too ambitious. So, and I'll read what it says, because this was perfect for every single one of these guys. Besides the fact that I don't have a card that says evil, because they were completely misguided. But what was highlighted on this documentary that was about 10 hours long was that they focused, and it's right here, focused excessively on self and upward career movement. They were absolutely obsessed with who was number 2 behind Hitler, who would take over the Third Reich, who had the most power, who got the glory. And there was Martin Bormann. I'm sure you've heard the names, but Bormann was an individual I didn't know much about, but he was kind of a behind the scenes bureaucrat, and he would always involve himself in, say, one of Hess's assignments or Hermann Goering's assignments, and be involved just enough to where if it worked, then he would get credit for it somehow. Or if it failed, that offensive didn't work, he would always be able to blame. So he was but they all had their foibles, but being too ambitious, I don't know. Hitler's inner circle, I thought I'd kind of throw you a curveball there. Go study it. Okay, here's another one. Political missteps. I want to tell you a story about this. Making mistakes politically. Political missteps. All right. I had a friend that I used to work with. Her name was Sandy. Sandy Naden. You'll never meet her. She lives in the United States and is doing something completely different now. But she was a fantastic salesperson. Always at the top. Always did really well. Her problem was that she complained a lot, and she was a pain in the butt. Does anybody know someone who sells a lot but's a pain in the butt? Don't point to your people sitting around you. There are sometimes folks who are really good and they're very effective, but they don't get along well with others. And Sandy was doing things politically incorrect because she was voicing her opinion all the time. Well, here's what I don't like about this. And I want to get, I think our commission should be higher. And why do we have to pay for this? And she was really difficult to be around if you were one of the top managers that coached her. Well, the problem was in that setting, when she was a university student in that corporate setting, we gave her a little bit too much freedom and we were lax in coaching her about that. So when she left and went into a different corporate workforce, guess what? She stayed the same. And so after she established herself and worked hard and started selling really well, she went right to, in about a month, I think it was 2 weeks to a month into her career and was doing well. She went into her boss's office, the person she reported to, and she'd written down a bunch of complaints. She goes, well, here's things that I'd like to change because I don't like how we do this. And he sat and listened and nodded his head and said, oh, really? Okay, that's interesting. Okay, that's a good point. And he said, well, you don't like this, this, and this. She goes, no, we need to change this for me. And he said, okay, well, I have a solution. She said, what's that? He said, you're fired. She was like, what? He said, you're fired. You don't need to work here. I mean, you need to work somewhere else. So why don't you go ahead and pack up, and appreciate you having a go at it. And that was the end. And it was probably the best thing in terms of her maturity, because no one had ever told her that before. She was a pain in the rear, and politically, you just don't do that with upper management. I mean, it's okay to voice your opinion occasionally, but she made a career out of being a pain in the rear. I mean, she was nice and everything, but you know what I'm talking about. Okay, let's do, here's another one. Insensitive to others. Insensitive to others. That means you're intimidating. You're a driver, too much of a driver. You overuse that. You make others feel bad. You don't care about how they think or feel. You just plow on. So rate yourself on that. How did you do? All right. So I was going to let me add a couple more real quick. And I've seen this hurt people. It didn't kill their career, but it stalled them. I wrote down, I also created my own card. Talks too much. Talks too much. Have you known people that it seems like they must have no other friends outside of you? So when you ask a question, they just verbal diarrhea, just blah, all over. And they just talk too much. I knew a woman corporately that people avoided her area because she was just, for whatever reason, talks too much. Here's another one that may have captured some of you recently. Unmotivated. Unmotivated. You know what that is. It's a point in your career where you feel stale and you feel bored and you don't feel like you're growing. And that can be a real staller on your career. If you walk into your your leader's office and say, you know what, I'm really bored with what I'm doing. That means you're boring. So change something. That's good. Last thing I'd mention that can affect your work and stall you is your work-life balance. Work-life balance and being out of balance. If things are going great at work and you're selling tons, but you're having a horrible time with your roommate or your partner or your husband, life is not good. Your home affects your work, I promise. If one of your kids is sick, it affects how you perform. So having things in balance, I think, is a great thing. So rank yourself there. If that's not a problem for you, we've talked about balance quite a bit. If that's not a problem, put a 1. If it's kind of a problem, put a 3. If it's a big problem, put a 5. All right. So if I am done, I want you to look at your list and see if you've got, hopefully you've got a bunch of 1s, and that's good. Maybe some 2s or 3s. If you have a couple 5s, you might circle those. And then ask people around you, do you see this as a career staller? Is this something that could affect me? And the challenge is, as we're working together, is it's really hard for people to, unless you like each other. In fact, that should be a card too. You should write that down. A career staller is unlikable. That's my last one. Unlikable. If you like somebody and you trust them, they look for ways to say yes. This happens in sales. If your clients like you and they trust you, they will look for ways to say yes. I promise. So the tough part about this assignment and exercise as we kind of wrap up here is to find people around you that you work with. Hopefully you're developing some good friends there in the office, and you can turn to them and say, okay, here's my list. We both heard this recording. Let's honestly go through and be real with me, because I want to take my circles, how I see myself and how other people see me, and I want to put them together like we talked about a couple of weeks ago. All right. So it's real easy to gloss over stuff and to just be nice to people. I've done it myself, where I've just basically lied to people's faces, and they're like, am I this way? I'm like, oh, no, you're great. You're fine. You're the best. And they're like, oh, good. And I'm like, why did I tell them that? I don't know. It's a deficiency I have. I wanted to be liked. So be brutally honest, not brutal, but be honest with people and let them know this is something that I've noticed. And if you find a consistent bit of feedback that's the same with all of them, then I would say there's some truth to that. If one person says something wacky about you, then you might just go, okay, I can dismiss that. But people have to like you and they have to trust you. That'd be somebody I would sit down with and have a cup of coffee. All right. Are there any other career stallers and stoppers that we've left out? Can anybody think of one? If you do, unmute and shout it out. Or anything that you've seen that's specific to LGFG. These were kind of generic. Anything LGFG? Okay, good. All right. Well, then I think I've covered it. Good job. Well, listen, have a great week. Go keep selling. I just read Dimitri's good news email that came out. There's a lot of great things happening. And I, again, congratulate you on that. And look forward to go crank up that repeat business. That sounds like it's where it's at, right? I am now signing off. You are all winners. Have a great week. Talk to you next week. Bye-bye.